I'm a god.
Well, what if there is no tomorrow?
I'm a god.
There wasn't one today.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, a podcast stuck in its own time loop right along with the movies we discuss. And this season we're taking a look at Groundhog Day after day after day after day. I'm your host Bubba Wheat from Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights, and in this episode we're discussing Phil's 17th Groundhog Day that starts and ends at 56 minutes and 31 seconds with, guess what? Phil getting slapped. And today, once again, my guest is Jason Soto from Whatever with Jason Soto. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Bubba Wheat. I cannot wait to talk about a slap. I'm so excited. You have no idea. I'm pumped. Let's do this.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So that this is another repeated angle of a slap. This is just the gloved hand with the close-up on Phil's face.
Mm-hmm.
And, this time, once again, I have it running as a loop without audio and on my computer screen. And this time I noticed that I can see Rita's nose, like, just peeking out right in the corner of the screen.
Really? Wait. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Look at that. Wow. You're a little detective when it comes to Bill Murray getting slapped in movies. That's amazing. Now that's a podcast idea. Bill Murray getting slapped, the podcast. Every movie Bill Murray ever got slapped in. There we go. We'll make that a reality over a Rabbit Hole podcast. Let's do it. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little loopy now because we're talking about slaps. So how many days in a row now?
Did you ever think that you'd be asked to come on a podcast to break down a slap montage over the course of 10 to 20 minute episodes?
If you would have asked me this like 5 years ago, I would have said no. But the way that everything's been going, lately, in 2020 and 2021, I'd say, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about par for the course. And, I do even goofier stuff on my podcast, so it's fine. Are we rating this slap?
Yeah, I'm ready to rate this one. Okay. I'll go ahead and go first this time.
All right.
I think that, again, this is kind of disappointing breaking it down this way because this is another repeated angle. It's the second angle that's the same one that was back in day 13, with just the close-up. And this is, I think, one of the shortest ones. I don't know how many frames, but it's definitely like less than a second that we see in this. And, it's just, we see Rita's nose poking out and then, just a quick slap and just like just a blink and a head shake from Bill Murray. So I would just give this one like a 6 out of 10. Okay.
I'm gonna agree with you, actually. Yeah, it's an okay slap. It's not bad. Yeah, I'm with you because it's and then I feel like she's not hitting that hard this time. Like it's because there are other slaps that was definitely harder than this one, and this one just felt like kind of like more of a tap. It was definitely not as hard. So I'm gonna go 7 out of 10.
All right. Yeah. So I've asked you how you said that over the entire course of the Groundhog Day movie that he's been trapped for about 3 to 3.5 years. But this is still relatively early because this is before Phil turns a corner and before he starts learning to play the piano and learning how to do an ice sculpture and all that.
Right.
So, at this point in the movie, how long do you think that Phil's been trapped here? Because, we've seen, because so far at this point, we've seen him learn how to rob the armored car. He says that he's seen Heidi 2 over 100 times.
Yeah.
Which you may, up to the, depending on the person, you may or may not take that as legitimate or hyperbole. Because it really could go either way, considering this movie.
I always took that line as like not 100 times in the time loop, but like 100 times in his life. You know what I mean? Like, because Heidi's an old movie, right? So he's like,
well, Heidi 2 is a non-existent. There is no actual Heidi 2.
well, okay, but we're in the fictional world. Let's say Heidi 2 is just as old, like it came out like a year after the first Heidi. Let's just say that.
Oh, that's an interesting theory because I believe like that the original Heidi is like a Shirley Temple movie, like whenever she was a kid, and most people that I've because my research for Groundhog Day for doing this podcast has been listening to other people's podcasts and listening to their research.
Okay.
Combined with, a little bit of my own internet research. But most people that I've listened to, whenever they talk about that, they assume that within the movie universe, Heidi 2 is a new release.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird because I'm assuming this is supposed to still be 1993, like the year the movie came out. So for them to make a Heidi 2, like, I know nowadays that's like common. Like, they made Coming to America 2 like 25 years after the fact.
Yeah,
but that's like
and Bill and Ted,
thing.
Face the Music.
Yeah, like, that's a recent trend. Like, back in 1993, like, no one would have thought to, like, let's make a sequel to a movie from, like, 1950, whatever your Heidi came out. So I would say my whole thing, I'm going to blow this thing wide open, you guys. I think Heidi 2 came out, like, in this movie's universe, like, a year or two after the original Heidi, and it still stars Shirley Temple. And I think it's an old movie, and I think Phil probably grew up with it. He probably, like maybe his parents took him, like they did like a showing back in the 70s. Well, he's probably in his 30s, right? So,
well, in terms of Bill Murray, whenever he filmed this, I believe he was about 43.
Okay, so let's say Phil Connors is in his 40s. Then we'll go with that. So he would have had in the 70s then had to have gone and seen Heidi 2 as a kid, and he probably grew up watching it. So I would say, to answer your very original question before it gets lost, I'm going to say he's seen it 100 times, probably not in a time loop. So to answer your question, I'm going to say we're probably, if he was living his normal life every day, like it went to February 3rd, February 4th, we would probably be around July during this slap. I'd say it's like, I'm going to be exact. I'm going to say it's July 15th during this.
So he's been in there about 5.5 months.
Yes. That's what I'm going to say.
And I do like your theory about Heidi 2 being kind of a forgotten classic, and I guess on the marquee it does say it's like a family tradition or a family classic.
How am I the only person to think it's an old movie? Why does everyone think it's a new movie? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, no, it's an older movie.
I always thought it's destined to be a new family classic.
No, it's got to be like an old movie. I'm even gonna look up the marquee.
The other kind of funny thing that's I've heard about listening to other podcasts talk about this is there actually was a Heidi 2, but it was German porn.
Oh, okay. Well, it could be what he goes sees, but then you said something about a family classic, so okay, maybe not. Okay, so when you look at a still, I can't believe I'm sorry, but you said you were running out of things to talk about for Slap, so we're going here, baby. I don't care. I'm sorry. So if you look at the picture of the theater marquee, it just says Heidi 2, and then there's a poster. Now, I can't quite make out, like, the poster exactly. It just says Heidi 2, and there's a picture of what it looks like. That could be Shirley Temple. I can't quite make it out, though. So I'm sticking with my theory that this is an old movie, and they made Heidi 2 a couple years after the original. I'm sticking with it, damn it.
All right, that works for me. And then, continuing on this completely random tangent, since we're all slapped out, we're slap happy.
Yeah.
Do you think that the costumes have anything to do with the actual plot of Heidi 2? his cowboy poncho and the French maid.
No, I think that's just him being silly. I think that has nothing to do with Heidi 2. I mean, it's possible that
It's not like Heidi 2, the search for Curly's gold.
yeah, or it could be Heidi 2. Heidi goes west. You never know.
I mean, it worked for Fievel.
Exactly. So she could have gone to like the Wild West and maybe met a cowboy, and then one of the it's like the villain of the movie could be like a rich guy who has a French maid who plays heavily into the plot. So yeah, absolutely. I'm you know what? I'm changing my answer. I think it is part of the movie. I think he's cosplaying. I think he's an early example of a cosplayer going to dress up as a character from the movie they're gonna go see. I think he outbeat like people dressing up as like Iron Man or whatever when they go see an Avengers movie. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Damn it.
All right, that sounds good. And once again, this is the last slap, so I'm itching to get into the next one where we actually have something more than just a slap. So
yes.
So why don't you go ahead and remind everybody where they can find you online once again?
Absolutely, I love plugging myself. Go check me out on Twitter.
Hey, now this is a family show.
That's right. You're right. I'm sorry. I did ask you that in advance. I apologize. This is Heidi 2 after all. Not the porn version, the regular Heidi 2. You can find me on Twitter at Famous Comedian. You can go check out my podcast, Whatever with Jason Soto, over on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. Or you could check out every podcast that I'm involved with, hosting, co-hosting, producing, over at rabbitholepodcast.com.
And as always, I'm Bubba Wheat from FlightsTidesAndMovieNights.com, where I've reviewed over 500 different superhero and comic book movies, and you can find this podcast, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else where you can listen to podcasts. And Heidi 2 Electric Boogaloo is, I'm writing that screenplay right now.
I'm down. Let's do it.
I'm a god. Well, what if there is no tomorrow? I'm a god. There wasn't one today.